What's up and welcome back to the channel. The name is Ninja Knight. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell up above for future uploads. Check out the links posted in the description down below to support the channel and consider joining the channel today. Thank you to everyone who supports. So yesterday I dropped a video talking about Son Heung Min, who plays for Tottenham Hotspur, and Scott McTominay, who plays for Manchester United, and the incident that happened in the game between the two players. Scott McTominay essentially flicked Son Heung Min into the face, and Son Heung Min went down onto the ground, rolled around, screamed at the top of his lungs, and stayed on the ground for 3 minutes. This is a man that has served in the South Korean army, so you would excuse the fact that I would have thought he would have been a little bit tougher than that, than getting flicked in the face and rolling around and behaving like an absolute prima donna. This is a decision then that was brought to VAR, and the referee decided to disallow a goal that was scored by Manchester United. An absolutely nonsensical decision. And I don't know what the referee was thinking, and I don't know what the VAR team were thinking by even bringing that up and making something out of that. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's reaction after the game was very honest, and I like to see it, to be honest. What I also found very strange was I had predicted myself within the video that I dropped there yesterday, talking about the fact that I thought that Tottenham Hotspur would pivot this into a sort of ist type of abuse that the player was going to receive, and less than 24 hours later Tottenham Hotspur have proved me right, and you had Spoof News here, BBC Sport, that have decided to write this article in response. This is something I'm going to talk about within this video, and I just want to preface this video by saying that I do not think that ist abuse is right. I do not think anybody should be receiving it, and I do not actually condone ist abuse whatsoever. But when you're seeing this sort of pattern start to emerge from the Premier League and from specific teams in particular, you're seeing this pattern emerge where bad results are occurring, and then a club is coming out and saying, well, this player was targeted on social media. It's a get out of jail free card. It's something that they're using as a distraction tactic, in my opinion, because when I looked on Twitter, for example, and I seen that cheating was trending and it was all attributed to Son Heung Min, I didn't see any instances of it talking about what he looked like or where he was from or anything like that. Now granted, there's possibly tweets out there that do exist that did state something like that, which I don't think is right. But as we'll see in this article, they're looking for further punishments other than actually reporting said tweets and letting the platform deal with it, which is going down a very slippery slope, in my opinion. So we'll get through the article, we'll have a bit of a laugh at it, because this is pure and utter nonsense. We're supposed to feel bad now for a multi-millionaire that lives in a gated community that feels offended at the fact that he's had a very few nasty words said towards him, in spite of the fact that he has actually tried to cheat and actually did cheat within a game, and the club have decided not to reprimand it. It's a wacko world that we're living in. It's clown world that we're living in. Pure nonsense. Tottenham are to determine the most effective action moving forward after Son Heung Min suffered abhorrent ist abuse on social media. In my opinion, what Tottenham would be better off doing is actually deciding to have some sort of action against the player for encouraging cheating, because you have many fans around the world that are watching this. You have many people that are young that are looking up to this guy. This guy is constantly plastered as a fella that's a nice footballer in the game. He's been involved in a number of dubious incidents. He kicks players, he's into tactical fouling, and then the likes of holding his face now here from a flick is really painting a picture about this guy. As an aside, what I'm going to say is this: I do not doubt that these players receive these type of messages, but something that I highlighted before was, are these players handling their own social media accounts, or is it a PR firm? Is it some sort of PR or PA that they have that are using their accounts? I had talked about that previously in a video that was brought up about Ian Wright, where he didn't see any sort of abuse. It was actually his PA that seen this abuse and brought it to his attention, and then Ian Wright made a story out of it. So excuse me if I'm saying patterns that are starting to emerge with this sort of stuff, because this is a constant when any time a bad result is had. And just cast your mind back and you'll see some of the results that have happened here now, and factually enough, they do give a bit of credence to what I'm talking about, in that there's a pattern starting to emerge. The South Korea forward was abused following Sunday's 3-1 Premier League home defeat by Manchester United. Teammate Davinson Sanchez received ist messages on social media after a 2-2 draw at Newcastle on 4th of April. Another match day, a more abhorrent abuse suffered by one of our players, said a Spurs statement. Not talking at all about the man cheating or anything like that whatsoever. This has again been reported to the platforms, and we shall now undertake a full review alongside the Premier League to determine the most effective action moving forward. This is odd within itself because I've seen numerous amount of accounts, especially when other people say, for example, report them when they say nasty things. The accounts get suspended, sometimes terminated completely, and the tweets are deleted. So I don't know what they are trying to do going forward. We have heard in clubs then saying that they want to have people having identification to use social media. You're going down a very slippery slope in terms of that then. What you're seeing now is people here are multimillionaires, as I said earlier on, that are offended over a few words being said to them on social media. What are they going to be like when people get back into stadiums and actually give them a piece of their minds? You and I both remember the type of songs that were sung about the likes of the Nevilles, things that were sung about Steven Gerrard, about Patrick Vieira, the likes of Sol Campbell, Arsene Wenger. This is something that's in the man's game, and these guys just can't seem to take it anymore. The mentality rate and the masculinity within the game is gone away, and it's a shame to see, because you look at the likes of Roy Keane, for example, who would have heard all sorts directed at him, still a top tier player, never cried about it whatsoever. You're seeing this sort of stuff being highlighted now and again when it suits them, the likes of BBC. They don't want to talk about the stuff that James McLean has received, for example. That's swept under the carpet really quickly, any chance that they get. And then you have then frauds like Raheem Sterling, for example, that comes out and says that he's standing up to this type of ism. Then when Fred is in a Manchester United match, in the Manchester United derby between them and Manchester City, Fred directly receives abuse from Manchester City fans, and Raheem Sterling stands idly by and does nothing about it, doesn't even have a word with the fan or the steward, nothing at all. So excuse me if I think that these people are absolute frauds. This is the same company, by the way, that'll prop up the likes of Lewis Hamilton, who was also involved in various dubious things that I've already documented in videos beforehand. Another guy to watch that's going along with this grift. Son, who scored for Tottenham in Sunday's defeat, was involved in an incident in which Manchester United had a goal disallowed after he was caught in the face by Scott McTominay. Should actually say when he was cheating. Because this is the thing, when you're seeing the likes of Solskjaer coming out and actually telling the truth, or a version of the truth anyway, and then decided to stop. This is what's really enraging fans, I think, when you're seeing the likes of managers coming out and failing to tell the truth, when you're seeing the likes of players coming out and failing to tell the truth. The boys did really well today, we'll try harder next time. No. Point out the guy who was terrible today. Tell me that the likes of the centre halves were absolutely rubbish today. Tell me if you're Harry Maguire, yeah, we had a very bad game today, I was terrible today, or Luke Shaw was poor today, or Aaron Wan-Bissaka was poor today, Paul Pogba was poor today. This truth needs to be said, and that's why when you're seeing the likes of Ian Holloway and the way he was beloved within the game, because he just used to say things as they were, it's why Roy Keane is beloved, particularly when he's on Sky Sports. And I actually think he's brought more honesty out of the likes of Micah Richards, who was very honest now and very straightforward, and the likes of Patrice Evra, for example, who was very straightforward and honest, who was then actually reprimanded by Sky Sports when he told the truth. But yet then they'll have the likes of Jamie Redknapp on, that's just a constant spoofer, that's talking absolute nonsense week in, week out. It doesn't make sense. Put people on that are telling the truth. The truth needs to be told, and it needs to be said. It really does. Tottenham said last week they wanted social media platforms to take action after defender Sanchez was subjected to abuse. Now again, like I said, I don't think it's right that they're subjected to this sort of stuff. Do I think they themselves see it? Most likely not. And then what are you trying to say now? You're trying to tell me now that a multimillionaire is offended over some person that doesn't earn even a percentage of what they ever will in their lifetime, is offended over what someone else is saying. This is clown world stuff. Think about, like I said earlier on, the people that would have received abuse over the years, and even if they were in the likes of the local boozer, if you'd like the Graham Souness's of the world that was in a boozer in Manchester and the type of a stick that he's going to get, even to this day, he's just going to laugh it off. He's not going to be running to social media and crying about it. That's the mentality of these guys, and this is the mentality that's been perpetuated by the likes of these outlets here. This victim mentality rather than this strong mentality. I mean, I would have more respect for Son if he came out and said, I actually served for my country. This doesn't mean anything to me. You see a really good example in Marcus Rashford, for example, that has said not too long ago that he's actually been focusing on this sort of stuff over the last couple of years, that he was actually getting better, he was just laughing her off, and that he was just getting stronger about it. Then you're going to see the likes of what we'll see later on now, where one prolific individual that you would actually think would have thicker skin, but then decided to cower away from social media. That's why, to me, I think Marcus Rashford is a shining example for all players. Again, like I said in previous videos, I'll criticise him sometimes for the ability. I can't criticise him for the man that he is. He's absolutely wonderful, and I have to say, he is someone that is a really big inspiration to all footballers and younger people, because he takes this stuff on the chin, realises that he has a really good life, and then saying to himself, well, the opinions of a very small minority of people, and believe you me, it is a very small minority of these people, that you'll never change their minds, by the way, either, which these social media platforms think you'll do. But he's seeing the bigger picture, understands what it is, understands his good life, understands that the majority of United fans absolutely love him. And the majority of fans around the world, I would assume, absolutely love him, particularly what he's done for the likes of the British school children, and it's wonderful to see. That's a really good way to do things, in my opinion. On Friday, a number of Premier League managers called for a football-wide boycott of social media in response to the increasing frequency of abuse sent to footballers. Incredible stuff. Like, they'll talk about later on about them having to switch off social media, and they shouldn't have to. Well, if you're not able for it, don't go on it. I mean, you see a number of high-profile actors that do not have the likes of social media because they don't want to see what's being written about them online. Ben Affleck, as an aside, was one person cast as Batman, saying the first reaction was like, no, can't believe it, switched it off, didn't have anything to do with that after the fact. You were seeing Wyatt Russell at the moment, that's playing Captain America in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that is not on social media whatsoever, because he said he doesn't want to see any negative stuff. That's a man with a brain. Unfortunately, a lot of these footballers do not have brains, and a lot of people do give them far more credit than they deserve. Scottish champions Rangers plus Championship clubs Swansea and Birmingham are boycotting social media for a week to combat abuse. Does nothing in the long term. Swansea took their decision of a short boycott, with players Jamal Lowe, Ben Cabango and Jan Danda having been racially abused on social media in the past 2 months. Rangers followed Swansea when they announced their players and staff would boycott social media for a week because of concerns about how platforms deal with this abuse. They ban people off it, they delete tweets. What more is it that you want? It's getting into clown world territory now. Liverpool also said this abuse on social media cannot be allowed to continue after Trent, Keita and Sadio Mane were targeted. So again, bad results, people targeted, it's a get out of jail free card, and the club can blame something else rather than actually say, well, these players are actually underperforming. The likes of Trent is out of position regularly and caught out. And now you're seeing, actually, as a matter of fact, you're seeing a lot of companies that are broadcasting these games that are afraid to criticise some of these players. I think Graham Souness is probably the only one that consistently actually says Paul Pogba is absolutely terrible. There's very other few people that will actually say the same thing, because I think that a lot of them are afraid. There's a lot of them that are out there, I think, that are afraid to criticise Marcus Rashford when he's having a bad game. And that's not right either, because how can you get better as a team if you can't criticise someone? Anthony Martial is another guy that looks like he gets a bit of the sulk if someone criticises him. It's incredible stuff, really is. At the end of the match, former Arsenal and France striker Thierry Henry said he was removing himself from social media because of ism and bullying across platforms. This is the same Thierry Henry, by the way, that handled the ball against Ireland, had no qualms with telling the Irish players that he didn't handle the ball when he clearly did, actually cheating, and then decided to also tell the referee, I didn't handle the ball, and then after the fact was like, yeah, I handled the ball, had a bit of a giggle about it, and then got upset then because people were saying, look, this is what you did. Went off then to the World Cup down with France, absolutely embarrassed themselves. Nice bit of karma. But at the end of the day, this is a guy now that's as inconsistent as the day is long. This is a guy that's over there now and he's managing teams. He has a very bad record, and then he's turning around and saying, well, I don't get an opportunity because of what I look like. It's pure and utter nonsense. And Sol Campbell's another guy that's in that sort of wheelhouse of absolute nonsense. Sol Campbell had a win percentage of 17%, and then he's saying, oh, well, I'm not getting a chance because of what I look like. That's not it. Your statistics are terrible, so that's why you're not getting the gig. You're seeing the likes of Sam Allardyce. They constantly will slag Sam Allardyce. End of the day, the man gets the results. What can you say? It's nothing to do with what he looks like. He's good at what he does. And this is what you're constantly seeing when you're constantly seeing it in different forms of entertainment. This identity politics. We don't have enough of this in the sport, and it's totally diluting the thing. And then what happens is then you're going to have people then in top positions that actually shouldn't be there whatsoever. And you're seeing it now in all walks of life. At the time, Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden said on Twitter that no one should have to switch off social media because of abuse. Yeah, they should, because this is what happens if you're on a public platform. You're going to get a lot of people out there with various different ideas. Some people that just will not like somebody else, and that's just going to be the way it is. You either do one of two things, then you decide to block that person, or you leave social media. That's the only options that you're having, and you're seeing it then to some good success. Like I said, Wyatt Russell There's a man that's not on social media. Daisy Ridley, there's a woman that's not on social media because they said they don't need it and they don't want to see any of the negative stuff. That's a good way to deal with it. That's strong mentality to say, well, I'll actually won't partake in it rather than reading it and then becoming the victim, because this is what it is. This is our people that are looking at this. Thierry Henry will be back to social media very soon. There's no doubt about it. He'll be back onto it and then he'll be saying, look at this sort of stuff that I'm receiving. Ian Wright's name goes quiet for a while, pulls out the likes of the tweets. See what I'm saying? It's all about promotion and victimhood. It's a terrible thing to see now in these days. There's no masculinity anymore. These people have been able to stand up and say, look, this is what I'm doing it on my talent and on my merit. Not too long ago, by the way, BBC were the same company that were telling certain people they couldn't say certain words and all of that. So you're talking about a diversity of opinion and these people shouldn't feel abused, and then you're telling people what they can and can't say. Bit hypocritical, don't you think? He added, social media firms must do more to tackle this, and we are introducing new laws to hold platforms to account. See, this is the big thing now. They're trying to introduce laws. So what they want to do is then, and this is the slippery slope you're going down, is they want to introduce these type of speech laws because people feel really offended and hurt by words. This is nonsensical. How someone can say that someone else is speaking in such a manner and that they feel this sort of hate and all this nonsense is beyond me. These people have clearly not been to a football match before, or they haven't been down to a local park on a Sunday morning where there's a football match going on where anything and everything gets said. Anybody that stepped over a line onto a football pitch and that hasn't said a few untoward things is a liar, a complete and utter liar. I will say that absolutely no problem whatsoever, because when you see things that get said online, particularly in a man's game, things get said. Are they always right? Absolutely not. But the idea of it is you're supposed to get into the head of someone else. Look at some of the stuff, for example, the likes of Muhammad Ali. People will say he's the greatest of all time, fantastic guy. Look at some of the things that he said to the likes of George Foreman. Not very nice whatsoever. And certainly then in certain manners he said to him also. But this stuff all gets overlooked then. And then you're trying to draw criticism then to certain people. Look at, for example, the argument that erupted between John Terry and Anton Ferdinand. Nobody asked what Anton Ferdinand had said to John Terry. Nobody at the time. It was, let's make Anton Ferdinand the victim. Unbelievable. What did he say to John Terry to have that sort of response? And that was the start of it, by the way, where stuff was picked up on cameras that was between two men on a football pitch that would have been forgotten about. And instead then the likes of the media wanted to get involved and say, well, what did they say here? It's a man's game at the end of the day. This is why people laugh at the likes of the women's game, because the women's game wouldn't have any of this. And then they're crying down, for example, the likes of the women's USA football team. We're not paid equally. You can't fill a stadium. You were beaten by an under-15s football team, boys team. Like, get out of here. If you think you're getting paid the same as the men, don't bring in the same revenue. Absolute spoof. Twitter has said it is committed to Kick It Out's initiative to tackle online hate and look forward to continuing these discussions and developing solutions with our partners in football. Isn't that terrible that we live in a world that people are like that now, rather than saying, pull up your pants, put on the big boy shoes, pull up your socks there now, get on with it and get over it. This is just adding to a victim mentality and telling people it's okay to be the victim rather than just get on with it. This stuff, and anybody, I would challenge anybody to say that things have been said to me over the years about where I'm from and the fact that I'm Irish. But it's a character building thing, because if you're going to buckle under what some person says offhand, what sort of use are you going forward in if you're in a leadership role or if you're in some sort of leadership position? Like, you're going to buckle under the first thing someone else says? You must be joking. That's why I'm saying the likes of managers there. Saul Campbell, 17% win percentage. Doesn't surprise me then, because when he's trying to buckle under the likes of what he looks like, you have to draw bigger criticisms onto that then and bigger question marks. So as we're seeing here at the end here now, it says Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, said it took action on 6.6 million of pieces of that sort of speech between October and December last year. Now, again, this is totally up to whoever is moderating it, and the moderators within themselves can be totally and utterly inconsistent. You can have people that will say, for example, say one thing and it's absolutely no problem at all, and then you say, someone will say it in another connotation and it's removed and then you're deleted and all of this sort of stuff. It's unbelievable. Some of the stuff that gets said on Twitter is out there, and that's coming from people, by the way, that are supporting stuff that's going on in America at the moment, and particularly a three-letter group that have caused anarchy across there. Some pure evil stuff that's going up on there, but nothing being said about it or none of it being removed. And then you have other incidents then that are being talked about, the likes of Twitter being sued by certain people because certain images have gone up there also, which is something they also won't talk about. So they're looking to take action on DMs and the likes of that. But ultimately and overall, what this is, and I will say it to you, do keep an eye on this going forward. Look at the pattern. A team has a bad result, they'll pick out one player and say, this guy received abuse. Nothing surer that this will happen again by the end of the season, or it won't happen. I think it won't not happen at least 2 or 3 times now before the end of the season. There'll be a couple of bad results. They'll focus the narrative on this, hope it'll blow over. Here we are a day or so later, and there's nobody asking questions of like, is Son going to be reprimanded for cheating? What's the club's stance on that? These are the questions that should be asked back towards the club. Okay, terrible that he received this abuse. We absolutely condemn it 100%. It's terrible that he received it. Now, what's the club going to do about this man cheating? What's the FA going to do about the man cheating? What's the Premier League going to do about the man cheating? Is there going to be some sort of reprimand? Because what you're actually saying is now, is just because he got a bit of stick by online anonymous trolls that you're talking about, with no proof, by the way, that it just skirts by the issue of this guy actually cheating within a game that's viewed by millions. And that's only if people are switching on with them bending the knee at the start of the game, which is another joke within itself. Another thing, by the way, they won't highlight the fact that the likes of Wilfried Zaha, he's received plenty of abuse online and they haven't said a word about that man. I wonder why. They haven't said a word about the likes of James McLean receiving the likes of the abuse that he has for years that he has done. Not a word whatsoever. But again, drawing it back down to Wilfried Zaha, you want to talk about all this sort of stuff, talk about what happens to him. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is someone that also receives abuse on regular occasion, and that's because it's not highlighted, because he's going to say, well, I'm not going to play for England anymore, I'm going to play for Congo, I think it is. And it's like, yeah, I don't care about him whatsoever. So everyone's seeing what's going on. They're seeing what's happening here. They're seeing the likes of the diversion tactics that's being used, the distraction tactics. Look at this hand while this hand is doing something else. And as a result, then you're getting this victim mentality. I would find more respect on Tottenham Hotspur and in Son Heung Min if they both came out, or even one of them came out and said, I apologise for my behaviour in the game. It won't happen again. I'm really sorry about that. I know he was cheating. I'm going to stamp it out. I think the league actually need to look at this sort of stuff and need to actually find that punishable. Not too long ago, I think Lacazette was punished or reprimanded after the fact for him screaming at the top of his lungs like he got an injury and then didn't have it at all. This also lands a dangerous precedent in that a very serious incident, I think, is going to happen at some stage and people will just play on. At this stage, I've gotten to the stage now where I think players, if someone goes down, they're lying on the ground, play on. I don't want to see the ball being kicked out anymore. I've had enough of it now. I've had enough of fellas getting tapped, lying on the ground, rolling around, screaming, and then a free is given then towards them, or the ball's kicked out and it's kicked back to them, to their defender, and you're seeing a whole start of the game. Then it actually kills the flow of the game. I want fellas to play on. I'll always say this to people that check out the channel, and particularly videos like this, when you're saying, oh, maybe you're a bit harsh on them and stuff. Look at the likes of Gaelic football, for example, here in Ireland. Fellas go through all sorts of abuse that be shouted at them. The likes of the shouldering that does be done on each of them, the wrestling that's be done, some of the pucking that does be going on between each of them, the likes of punches, and then all the other things that happen within them games. No issue then with this sort of stuff coming out of there, and that's the way it should be. It should be a man's game. Men got to play it. Things get said. Yeah, at the end of the day, you all walk off. You go for your points after. Friends are made. Happy days then. This victimhood and this victim mentality isn't the way to go going forward. And like I said, I hope the player himself maybe at some stage comes out and says, well, it was actually a very bad decision that I made. I've served my country. I should actually know a little bit more. I should actually hold a little bit more respect for myself, and I should hold a little bit more respect as well for the opponents, because that's the way things should be done, and that would actually send a very good message. But I find it very unlikely. I find it very unlikely to come from this club also, and I find it very unlikely to come from the player, and particularly at the moment the manager, because the manager is clapping back at what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said, rather than actually saying, yeah, Son was cheating in front of the world, in front of millions there on that camera, and everyone can see it. Let's tell the truth. Anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell up above for future uploads. Check out the links posted in the description down below to support the channel, and consider joining the channel today. I'll talk to you later. Good luck.